If you think The Hateful Eight is just another brutal Quentin Tarantino film filled to the brim with blood, packed only with trademark dialogues and post-irony, you are mistaken. Many have missed the essence of this film. Although it seemed quite obvious to me, I watched numerous reviews, and you know what? None of them provided me with a satisfactory answer to the question, what did Tarantino really want to say?
So bright, you got to wonder why nobody never thought about it before.
In this video, I will analyze the most important moments of the film. I will explain why the film is called The Hateful Eight, beyond the obvious fact that it features 8 main characters. We will also touch on why Minnie did not allow Mexicans into her establishment.
No dogs or Mexicans allowed.
How does the final scene reveal the meaning of the entire film?
Now that was a nice dance.
That sure was pretty.
And of course, we will talk about that letter from Lincoln. Perhaps one of the most important details sheds light in the film's meaning.
You still got it? I still got what? The Lincoln letter. Of course.
To begin with, let's briefly refresh our memory of the film's plot. Remembering all the moments and plot twists is important for understanding the film. The action takes place in the snowy mountains of Wyoming, where bounty hunter John Ruth, nicknamed the Hangman, is transporting his prisoner Daisy DeMurg to her execution. Along the way, they encounter another bounty hunter, Major Marquis Warren.
Name's Major Marcus Warren, former U.S. Cavalry, currently a servant of the court, trying to bring a couple no-goods in the...
And Sheriff Chris Mannix.
Is that you, Chris Mannix?
I'm sorry, friend, do we know each other?
A few take refuge from an impending blizzard in Minnie's haberdashery, where several mysterious figures are already present. Mexican Bob claims that the owner is away.
Name was again?
Executioner Oswaldo Mowbray.
Oswaldo Mowbray.
Oswaldo.
Yes.
Cowboy Joe Gage.
Joe Gage.
What?
That's my name. Joe Gage.
And an old general
Colonel Sanford Smithers, I see.
create a tense atmosphere, making it clear that no one here is an accidental guest.
Everybody, get your backsides up against that back wall over yonder.
The 4 who are in the establishment turn out to be members of DeMurgue's gang, who have come specifically to free Daisy.
Now, one of y'all is working with her. Or 2 of y'all is working with her. Or all y'all is.
Moreover, Daisy's brother has been hiding in the cellar all this time.
With your hands where we can see them. Slowly come on up.
As a result, what starts as an ordinary trip for the bounty hunters ends in a bloody massacre where almost everyone dies. The climax of the film becomes a bloody showdown in which the surviving, blood-soaked major and sheriff decide to carry out Daisy's sentence themselves.
You only need to hang mean bastards. But mean bastards you need to hang.
And at the end, they read that very letter from Lincoln.
Hey. Can I see that Lincoln letter?
I think it is obvious to everyone that the title The Hateful Eight implies that there are 8 main characters in the film. And this is Tarantino's 8th film. But the title is actually more interesting than it seems. In 1960, the film The Magnificent Seven was released, which became a classic of the Western genre. The plot revolves around poor farmers suffering from regular raids and extortion by a gang who decide to find defenders for their settlement. Chris and 6 other mercenaries respond to their plea and unite to fight the robbers. Despite the significant advantage of the bandits, they succeed. In his Hateful Eight, Quentin Tarantino decided to subject this classic plot to deconstruction. Deconstruction is when a familiar concept that has become stereotypical is literally broken down into parts and then reassembled into something else that can no longer be called a stereotype. As a result, familiar elements are seen from a new, unexpected angle. Tarantino does just that. In The Magnificent Seven, events unfold under the hot Mexican sun, whereas in Tarantino's film, it is the cold, snowy Wyoming. If a classic Western usually takes place outdoors in endless prairies, Tarantino chooses to place his characters in a confined space, a haberdashery. In The Magnificent Seven, our heroes wait for the bandits in the settlement to protect the townsfolk, while in The Hateful Eight, the bandits have already been to the haberdashery and dealt with its inhabitant. In The Magnificent Seven, 7 noble heroes fight for justice, while in The Hateful Eight, we meet 8 despicable, deceitful, and selfish characters who are primarily driven by a desire to profit. The leader of the gang has come here to nobly save his sister from death.
How you doing, dummy?
Better. Now I see your ugly face.
Thus, the title of the film is more of a play on words. There is The Magnificent Seven, and here we have The Hateful Eight. Tarantino deliberately destroys everything we have come to expect from Westerns, offering us not a heroic story, but a brutal, convoluted, and dark drama. To understand the meaning of The Hateful Eight, it is important to consider not only the events of the film, but also the historical context. Perhaps you noticed that words like Southerners or Confederates frequently appear in the dialogues? If you are not familiar with the Civil War in the United States, some important points may pass you by. Let's briefly refresh our memory of the essence of this conflict. The American Civil War was one of the bloodiest and most significant events in American history. It erupted in 1861 between the northern states known as the Union and the southern states that united in the Confederacy.
I joined the war to kill white Southern crackers. That means killing them any way I can. Confederates took exception to my capacity for killing them.
The main cause of the conflict was the issue of slavery. The North advocated for its abolition, while the southern states insisted on maintaining the slave system, as their economy depended on slave labor on plantations. But, of course, this conflict was not just about slavery. It also involved issues of power, economic influence, and cultural differences. The North was more industrialized, progressive, and wealthy. This was a real divide in the country that reached a boiling point when the southern states declared their secession from the Union and proclaimed the creation of a separate nation. Against this backdrop, the events of The Hateful Eight unfold. Now that we have refreshed our memory of the film's plot and its historical context, let's move on to discussing its meaning. What is The Hateful Eight really about, and what significance does Lincoln's letter hold?
Old Mary Todd's calling, so I guess it must be time for bed. Old Mary Todd.
The key to understanding the film is given by Oswaldo Mowbray when he divides the haberdashery into 2 parts.
I suggest a possible solution. We divide Minis in half. The northern side and the southern side.
On one side are the Confederates, and on the other are the northern states and the Union.
We could say that the fireplace side of the room acts as a symbolic representative of Georgia, while the bar represents Philadelphia.
General Sandy Smithers and Sheriff Mannix expressed their strong commitment to Southern ideals.
Nigger. Is the nigger with the $5,000 reward on his head?
Well, they ain't no...
While Major Marquis Warren, who fought on the side of the North, carries personal animosity and hatred towards Southerners. This turns the House into a miniature version of a nation divided into 2 camps, each of which fiercely asserts that it is right and that its actions are honest and just. But upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that all of this is a lie.
Shit.
Lies are what unites everyone in this room. Our magnificent 4 from the gang initially lie, hiding their true motives. But the others are not as honest as they may seem at first glance. For example, it turns out that Major Marquis Warren, who fought for the freedom of black people, also killed his own.
Just burned 47 men alive for no more reason than to give a nigger a run for the trees. That's when the South put a reward on the head of Major Marquis.
And it seems that he simply enjoyed doing it.
I do believe they accused you of being a kill-crazy nigga who only joined the war to kill white folks. And the whole blue and gray draw really didn't matter that much to you. And that's why they drummed your black ass out of the cavalry with a...
General Sandy Smithers, a staunch racist, suddenly allows a crow to sit next to him.
May I join you?
Yes, you may.
How's life since the war?
I can't complain.
Even though he recently refused to break bread with him.
you want to sit here by yourself? Everybody's sitting right over here. Just come have a
Well,
little.
if you're hungry, go sit at the table, and then you will be eating with a nigger.
Immediately after killing him, he takes his warm clothes, as if no respect ever existed. He also claims to hate black people. But as soon as Warren has a weapon and their goals align, that hatred suddenly evaporates.
Warren, please let me send this ugly son of a bitch to hell.
The Hateful Eight is not just another classic Tarantino film filled with blood, violence, and magnificent dialogues. It is a deep and dark story about lies, manipulation, duplicity, double standards, and how people, trapped in a confined space, begin to reveal their true, far from heroic sides. The film raises questions about the nature of lies and truth and how easily it can be replaced with beautiful but false stories. John Ruth does not care whose side he is on. He simply follows what is beneficial. And of course, we cannot overlook Minnie, who, being black herself, exhibits racism. She hated Mexicans and considered dogs to be more worthy being. We are intentionally told this story first, and only later, closer to the end, do we find out that Minnie herself is black. In other words, a black woman who was herself a racist. In fact, this situation could very well have been true. After the Civil War, many African Americans sought work and settled in areas where their rights were at least formally protected. Mexicans, as immigrants from neighboring Mexico, also sought work in the same agricultural and construction sectors as African American. White employers often played on ethnic differences, dividing the workforce by nationality or race. This fueled conflicts between groups over access to jobs and resources. But interestingly, when Mexican Bob arrives at Minnie's haberdashery, she somehow forgets her dislike for Mexican.
Well, make yourself comfortable. Get warm by the fire.
This is yet another example of how lies and duplicity permeate everything that happens in this story. Thus, beneath the surface of each character lies a lie. Lies unite these people not only within a single room, but also at the level of society and the state as a whole. But if everything around is a lie, then what is the truth? The truth lies in the true motives of our heroes. These are not some lofty ideals. They are merely self-interest, a primal thirst for violence, and constant adaptation to the situation for the sake of advantage.
No, you done got me talking politics. I didn't wanna. Like I said, y'all, I'm just happy to be alive.
These characters are ready to betray their beliefs and values at a moment's notice if it gives them even the slightest advantage in the moment.
Was the hangman. When the hangman catches you, you don't die by no bullet. When the hangman catches you, you hang.
I sentence you, Domagoo, to hang by the neck until death.
This point is particularly emphasized in the final scene. We see Major Warren and Sheriff Mannix, a black man and a white man, who not long ago expressed absolute hatred for each other, unite in a single impulse to personally execute a woman. Moreover, they do so in the very manner that John Ruth, famous for his hangings, savored. This act becomes not just justice, but a brutal enjoyment of violence that brings satisfaction not from principles, but merely from the opportunity to unleash their cruelty. And how can we not recall Oswaldo's remark, who pondered the thin line between justice and vigilantism? He emphasized that the same actions can be perceived completely differently depending on how they are framed. If certain formalities are observed, even the most controversial acts can appear quite legitimate. Take, for example, the episode with Colonel Smithers. In a direct confrontation, one cannot just take a person's life. This would be an obvious violation of the law. But if one places a weapon nearby and tells a provocative and thoroughly false story that compels him to act, the situation changes. Now everything turns into an act of self-defense, and formally it appears to be a lawful action. Although the true motivation remains the same, the desire to achieve one's goals through violence. But the most ironic scene occurs at the end when the sheriff asks the major for that very letter from Lincoln. The letter that the major himself previously acknowledged as fabricated and just as false as everything else around. And surprisingly, the sheriff reads it with obvious delight and reverence.
I just want to let you know you're in my thoughts. Hopefully, our paths will cross in the future.
He even compliments the major on such a wonderful story.
Hard, That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
This shows that
Thanks.
people prefer beautiful and inspiring tales and touching stories over uncomfortable reality. The story that dominates the majority of states, starting from the conquest of the Spanish Empire, which is why today Spanish is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world, and ending with the colonization of Africa, is drenched in blood and violence. But history is written by the victors, and when you open a history textbook, you will find a beautiful, convenient fairy tale about the conditional Abraham Lincoln and the old lady Mary Todd.